What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Build a Mind podcast. I am here today with Owen Davis. He is a project engineer and a Bitcoin miner at Just for Crypto, which is a small Bitcoin mining operation. Well, small is not the right word. It's a horse class mining operation coming out of Minnesota, and their story is interesting. And I think this is kind of a story that a lot of people are finding or coming to, these days, especially as Bitcoin mining is kind of flourishing as a business operation. They started as one business, and they kind of slowly evolved into the world of Bitcoin mining, noticing they've got extra power, they want to get into mining. They start with one machine and slowly over time evolve to 20 megawatts. And Just for Crypto is really interesting because they started as a t-shirt printing shop, printing t-shirts for their dance studio, for their dancers, their students in the dance studio. And now they do the dance studio, they have the dance studio, they print t-shirts, but they also mine Bitcoin with all of this excess power that they have. And so it's just a really cool story. I think this is happening a lot in the world today. I just put out a story of a car manufacturer in China that slowly, very silently, quickly, very silently became the largest or one of the largest Bitcoin mining operations in the world, at least on the publicly listed side. So enough about that. We're going to talk with Owen today. We're going to find out, how Just for Crypto came about, who was really, the impotence behind, like, hey, let's start mining Bitcoin, and what their big plans are moving into the future. It sounds like they've got some things up their sleeve that they want to try out, but they do a lot of different types of mining. They have immersion, they have air cooled, and they have a pretty large facility. So it'll be exciting to see what they're doing out there and kind of why it came about. Before we get into our conversation with Owen, I have something to share with you guys.
Join the Mastermind Club, a weekly gathering of Bitcoin miners sharing insights to help you optimize or build your mining business. Our community fosters open discussion and collaboration, connecting you with experts who can help you overcome challenges and find solutions faster. Every other week, we host the Mastermind Deep Dive, where industry leaders delve into the financial, operational, and optimization hurdles faced by miners like you. Brought to you by Bitcoin Mining World.
All right, guys, join the Mastermind Club. Scan the QR code on your screen. Go to mastermindclub.com/Bitcoin, or go to bitcoinminingworld.com/mastermindclub to join the free Mastermind Club, help you build your Bitcoin mining operation. Anyways, Owen, we finally got you on the podcast. It took about 35 minutes to get you on here. Technical difficulties aside, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Trevor. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no. We originally met in Brainerd. We had the mining conference. You guys hosted that for us. It was an incredible event. We really appreciated it. But one thing that was really cool, and I didn't get to participate in it because I had to go home, but you guys let us tour your mining facility out there in Brainerd, Minnesota. That was really cool. I got to see some of the videos that came out of that. But you guys have quite a large facility for starting as a printing shop.
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm gonna take it in the backstory a little bit to how we first got into it. So our founders, Steve and Jared Cloud, they got into crypto, I would say, really early on in like 2018, I want to say, like right after that big Bitcoin bull. And that's when everyone heard about Bitcoin, right? The
Yeah.
Ponzi scheme and the scam coins. And then so they started off by just trading it, like trading Bitcoin, other cryptos, a bunch of different stuff. And then they eventually started to learn more and more, as we all do. We go down the rabbit hole. They actually started getting into learning how Bitcoin is set apart from all these other shit coins, I'd like to say. I don't know if we can swear in here, but
You're good, man.
um, and then so they learned that there's this thing called mining where you actually print Bitcoin in a sense. And so they were like, oh, like I wonder if we can do that. So they started off with some Zcash miners, I think, and then gradually went to Bitcoin miners. They tried plugging in 10 Bitcoin miners above the T Hive where we print t-shirts, where we print stuff like that too, different things. And heated up a room to about 130 degrees within an hour because they didn't have
Proper ventilation.
exactly. So then they're like, wow, if we're trying to get to where we want to be in this building, we're gonna do something different. So they emptied out one of their printing rooms, and we actually were one of the first large scale immersion systems in the United States, in the US, two-phase immersion system with glycol and water and immersion fluid, dielectric fluid. So we put about 100 to 300 machines into 1,000 square foot room with dry coolers outside and in one of our businesses with like 8 cent power. We didn't really know what we were doing back then, but yeah, that's how it kind of started. And then it led to us finding out about excess power here where we're at in Brainerd, Minnesota. And then it's been history ever since. We got a building here. We got 25 megawatt line coming in. We got cheaper power that you can actually profit on with mining. And
Uh,
yeah,
right. It's cool that that sign behind you, T's to Satoshis. You literally started printing T-shirts and now you're printing Satoshis, and that's kind of
this was
cool.
an idea for a podcast name that we haven't started yet, but we were just, I mean, anyways, it's a really cool symbol and sign of where we've come.
Well, yeah, it's this testament of taking an idea and seeing it to fruition and just going with it. You know, obviously you can't figure it out with just watching a video or reading a book. Like you have to really dive in and like take that leap and then learn as you go. Like you quickly learned, oh shoot, we need to evacuate this air somehow, because if we
Yeah,
don't, we're gonna melt things. I mean, I've walked into mining operations where you look on the ceiling and there's like these ceiling fans made of metal, and they're all like bent down because all
yeah,
the heat rises and it's 130 degrees up there. And you know, nobody thinks about this until it's actually like you're faced with those problems. um
exactly.
Before we dive into some of the you know, pitfalls and the hurdles that you guys have had to overcome, I kind of want to hear your story. Obviously you're not the founder of the company. I would like to know, like when, what were you doing before you started mining Bitcoin for Just for Crypto, and how did you find Bitcoin?
Yeah, so Just for Crypto's been around for probably 3 years since they did the LLC. I've been here for about 2.5 of those 3 years. So I took a tour with our founder, Steve Clow, the founder of Just for Kicks, the dance company, and the T Hive, the shirt apparel company as well. I took a tour with him at the T Hive site when there were immersion tubs inside this 1,000 square foot room and jam packed full. And I was in college at the time, so I was a sophomore, and I took a tour with him my spring of sophomore year and just asked, I was like, wow, like I really want to get into this. I got into Bitcoin in 2020. I was shit coining and doing all other sorts of crypto. And then I was like, wow, this is super cool. Bitcoin mine coming to our hometown, to my hometown. And then I asked for an internship with him during that tour. They gave it to me. I worked that summer for them the whole summer. And then I just have stuck it out ever since. I transferred to an online college after that and stayed there for these last 2.5 years. And here I am now. It's been a ride. It's been a fun journey.
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit about that ride. Like what are some of the things that you've learned along the way? I mean, 2 years is a long time in Bitcoin. You know, like ups and downs, you know, bull markets, bear markets. So obviously you kind of came in during a bear market, you know.
Mhm.
So what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, I don't know. It was obviously tough. It was tough for our company, especially when we started building out the T Hive and this immersion system at the peak of the bull run when machines were 90 cents a terahash. We were spending $10,000 on an S19. Like, so obviously that stuff kind of hurt us a little bit. We luckily didn't get too crazy involved, like the compute norths of the world.
Mhm.
We actually had a similar offer back then to do kind of a similar thing to what they did, and we were very fortunate that we didn't get in a position of debt to that extent and building out when machine costs are through the roof. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. I would say wouldn't regret anything that we've done because it's led us to the exact point we're at now. And I think every hiccup and step along the way has just been a huge learning experience, and it's kind of just pointed us in the right direction. We've had joint ventures go bad, we've had different things, but we've always stayed true to ourselves and true to just building a good reputation. It takes 20 years to build good reputation. It takes 5 minutes to ruin it, and that's a hard thing in the Bitcoin space because there's a lot of shady characters that trying to take you for what you're worth. But it's it's been fun, I'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, something that I think for anybody who's really on that road of self-discovery and passion and drive, Bitcoin is the perfect symbiotic relationship to who you are, because it really allows you to think about your time preference and think about who you want to be and who you want to present yourself as. And you're right, there are a lot of shady characters with really malintentions, and so you kind of have to navigate these waters. I guess, are you guys still shit coining or mining other crypto coins, or just is it all Bitcoin?
So we do have a few L7s for
Uh-huh.
Litecoin and Dogecoin, but those are actually kind of wish right now we would have got more. So an L7, we got them about a year ago for about $3,000 a piece, and now they're trading for over seven
Uh-huh.
because of Dogecoin going through the roof. But I mean, Bitcoin, we're as bullish on Bitcoin than anything else. Obviously, we know the difference. It's balancing that making money and doing what you truly believe in. And I think we're in a good position. We only have about 20 other miners that aren't Bitcoin. So
Mhm.
I don't know.
This
I would say,
this is a story that I've heard very often. I know a lot of Bitcoiners who are mining other coins because, let's just be honest. You're running a business. You do want to profit, and running a Bitcoin mining operation is not the most profitable, especially when you're, every 4 years your revenue's getting cut in half. You're competing with, millions of other people on the network trying to mine Bitcoin. So what I see a lot of people doing, and I'm curious if this is what you guys are doing as well, but they'll mine Litecoin, they'll mine Doge or other script coins, and then they immediately transfer it into Bitcoin.
yeah, I can't speak to 100% on that,
Hmm.
but I'm fairly certain that's what we do.
Hmm.
Is take the Dogecoin and Litecoin and immediately transfer it into Bitcoin. I'm pretty positive, but
Yeah.
with the new Doge Department of Government Efficiency and stuff like that, and look at Marathon. I mean, they're mining Caspa too.
Are they
And
really? I didn't know about that.
yeah, they started off with Caspa miners, which were was a very good investment for a little bit there. I don't know where it's at to right now, but
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm such a hardcore maxi that, like,
Mhm.
I just kind of, like, I put the
It's not making
blinders on.
sense.
I don't think about anything else, you
Yeah.
know? Like, I maybe it's to my own detriment, but honestly, at the end of the day, I think Bitcoin's the only thing to be concerned about and worried about, and making sure
Mhm.
that, like, the
Yeah.
network proliferates and grows. So,
Yeah. How old are you, Trevor? If you
I
don't
am
mind
twen
me.
I actually turned 28, like, 3 days ago.
Yeah. So like me and you, we're in our 20s. Like the only
Yeah,
thing that we need to care about is like there can be older people maybe trying to get a quick bag before they retire, but me and you know where Bitcoin's going and we know our time preference, like you
yeah,
said, and just focus blinders.
yeah.
Exactly.
I have
Good
a
correct way to put it.
I have a friend who says diversifying is for protecting your wealth, not for growing your wealth. And I'm over here
Yeah.
like, man, I want to grow my wealth. I want to grow my ability to project my power forward. So it's like, what's the fastest horse in the stable? What's the fastest
Yeah.
appreciating asset, dude?
Mhm.
You look at the last 16 years versus like other markets and other assets. Like Bitcoin is the fastest thing in the market, even though like it goes through these dips, like these 2 year, almost 3 year dips. Like it still appreciates so fast, dude. I think we had in this last year alone, we had like 150% appreciation.
Yep.
That's crazy for anybody who just took $1,000 you held that $1,000 and then you made another 1,500 off of it.
Mhm.
You
Yep.
know, so it's incredible where this space is going. It's incredible what's happening with Bitcoin. I think I'm going to talk about the price a little bit. You know, we did dip a little bit, you know, and I think
Mhm.
that's because of the Fed cutting the rates in the market with a hawkish tone, kind of
Yep.
making the market feel like it's not a safe place. So they sold. But us Bitcoiners who believe in the fundamentals, all we see is like, dude, I hit smash buy this morning. I was like,
Yep.
oh, 96,000. Boom, I'm buying
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Exactly. It's just like that balance of like, yeah, sure. I can go throw thousands of my wealth into Dogecoin, a meme coin that has no true intrinsic value really, and maybe 10x in within a few months, but then it's gonna have those hard drops. It's gonna like Bitcoin is gonna get to the point where it's just steady up and one because once that education piece comes into play, when people actually start to understand what it truly is and what it does even just for our electrical infrastructure. I think there's going to be a huge momentum shift and understanding the true difference, which there already is, between separating crypto and Bitcoin. But
No, absolutely. I completely agree with everything that you're saying. It's like you take all of this education and the infrastructure and all the things that make Bitcoin what Bitcoin is, like there really isn't that much risk when you think about Bitcoin. Like yes, there's
Mhm.
a lot of volatility. I mean, we're in a huge volatility band and it's getting smaller and smaller every 4 years. But
Yep.
the risk, I mean, what's the risk that I think the risk is like, okay, maybe everybody on the network decides that Bitcoin isn't the currency of the future. So they stop mining it and they stop participating in the network. I think that's like really the only, I mean, there are other risks, but like if you think about it, like throwing your wealth into Bitcoin,
Mhm.
that being the risk is like I don't believe it. I don't
Yep.
believe that that's going to happen. I'm so forward thinking. I'm like, no, like we need something like Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's the
Mhm.
only thing that we have right now. So unless something better actually does come along, then like it's Bitcoin all the way, man.
Yep. Exactly.
So,
Exactly. It's
well, oh, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, I don't see how something so powerful. I mean, Bitcoin uses what, 18 gigawatts of the world's energy at this point. And like, are we gonna get to a point where there's a bug that just makes everyone shut off? Like, we'll just fork at that point and different. I mean, we don't need to get into the technicals of it, but it's such a democratic, decentralized system that it's just like it's immutable.
Uh
Like you
huh.
can't touch it.
Yeah.
Like
Well, and you
like
have
even Vladimir Putin, one of the most powerful people in the world, admitted
said
to
you
that.
can't control it.
Yes, you can't
Absolutely.
destroy Bitcoin. It's a
Yeah.
dragon that keeps regrowing its heads.
And that came off the tails of Donald Trump saying that any country that decides to go off the dollar is going to get hit with tariffs. And Vladimir Putin's like, you can't stop Bitcoin.
Mhm.
So
Yep,
suck it,
yep.
basically is what he was saying. I thought that was really
Mhm.
interesting. And I don't know if you saw it. This is something that I like to highlight a lot is, you talked about 18 gigawatts of electricity. That is a holy effing truckload of
Mhm.
electricity, but most of that electricity is coming from stranded locations,
Yep.
from renewable resources. So it's not like Bitcoin miners are coming in and taking that electricity away from the people that actually need it. They're not taking it away from hospitals. They're not taking it away from you with your AC or your fridge or anything like that. They're utilizing power that couldn't be brought to market, which is
Mhm.
bolstering energy grids, strengthening grids, selling that product to
Yep.
to the market suppliers, and making it a lot easier on those energy suppliers to juggle this energy market. Because I don't know if you know anything about energy markets, but it's like getting the power from the energy producer to the energy consumer is not an easy task. And
Yep.
it's not like it's always there. It's not like everybody's
Mhm.
always using just the amount of power that they need. So it's a
Yes.
huge task. And
Mhm.
I'm sure Just for Cryptos had to deal with different hurdles when it comes to acquiring the right amount of power, even though you don't have that many people in your city. I know that there's a little bit of a nuance there because you guys have a power facility a generation plant like in Brainerd, right?
We do not need the generation. We have excess capacity at the substation.
Okay,
So
that's
it's
what
just
it is.
it's the high voltage lines coming in from Minnesota Power up north from, I think it's hydro power up there, so there's
Mhm,
more renewable energy coming in high voltage lines to this substation, which they have the ability to transfer more power on those high voltage lines, which we've allowed them to do. So then Brainerd can then use more of that substation capacity that they built 100 megawatts too big, and then helps pay off the investment they put into that 150 megawatt substation, and we keep their baseline higher. So like Minnesota Power is producing now 50 megawatts constantly that they're sending to Brainerd, Minnesota. And if all the AC units turn on this summer and there's a shift from 50 or from 25 that the city's using to 30, we'll shut off 5 and
mhm,
go back down, and then it keeps that baseline the same, that base load. So then Minnesota Powers and BPU are in sync to then not having to shut off residential housing and subsidizing the substation, like I said, which then in turn can help subsidize cheaper rates for residents.
mhm.
And that's kind of what we've seen. We've seen this shift within our community of BPU very hesitant on us right away, like Bitcoin, we're shadowy Bitcoin, scary miners that are just going to come use all this power and do whatever we want. But we can shut off within 2 minutes. We can shut off 25 megawatts of power within 2 minutes. So we had a situation 2 summers ago where Minnesota Power had an issue with this incoming high voltage transmission line to our substation. And we had to fully shut off all of our equipment here. And we did it instantaneously, and then which allowed our utility company to not have to shut off everyone else's power in town. They didn't have to cause rolling brownouts or blackouts anywhere else. So everyone else was unaffected because we just dropped all of our load immediately and then slowly brought it back up as more transmission got through.
Yeah, you're talking about this demand response, being able to shut down as needed without affecting the lives of citizens. But you're also touching on, so the power provider built out way too much infrastructure, and they couldn't sell that power to the city because at the time of production, like you've got maybe like 5% using the power. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously not enough people were moving to the state. They weren't they were expecting more, not that many came. But you
Yep.
guys come in and you guys are like, hey, I'll buy up as much power as you'll give me, and I'll continually do it, and then when you need to send it to other people, we'll just shut off and you can pay us to shut off. I
Yep.
It's just it's so crazy when you think about it, when you really think about like what Bitcoin miners are doing for grid stabilization. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're also like reducing the power rate for your community. I'm curious, like what has the over, like, are you able to are you able to explain like what the community response has been to Just for Crypto?
Yeah. So when we first started, I would say so. There was a Chinese group that first found out about the excess capacity at this substation. No idea how. And then we got tipped off from it from one of our city council members who we know because we're from here. And so we kind of went into a bidding war for this power of like, we'll do this for the city, we'll do this, like kind of like one-upping each other. Eventually, we were just like, okay, what the heck? Like, we're from here and you're not going to give us this power contract. So we were just like, all right, we're just going to go kind of loop around in a sense. Not, I mean, nothing shady, but we just like bought a building then in town. BPU worked with us to get power lines out here and everything. And so the city residents, we're in an industrial park here, so we don't really have any issues with residential, like too much noise or anything. But I'd say the big complaint is this new group that's in town. They still have contracted 25 megawatts, the other 25 megawatts, and they are a little closer to some residents. And there's been a lot of pushback with them in their build out and with the dry coolers and their fans and different stuff like that. And we actually held a tour with our city council and our electrical committee and at our site to just kind of show them around. And I don't know, we should have done it way sooner because
Hmm.
like immediately once we got on site and these community members that were complaining, they also joined because I think they just wanted to learn more. And we were just very cordial, showing them around, educating, answering all the different questions they have, like, oh, like, does it give cows brain cancer? Like, it's like deer. There's more deer here than are at my house in the middle of the woods. Like, it doesn't scare away livestock or animals.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just different things. Like, does it just take all the power? And we kind of explain the base load setup. Well, I mean, some of the Brainerd Public Utility members were there, if I remember right, and like we just kind of went through like how base load works with utilities. Like, not everyone has their hot water heaters running at all times or electrical AC units running at all times, so there's not that solid base load naturally. And so we explained that and kind of went into how Bitcoin mining actually benefits a community versus takes from the
Hmm.
community. And it was so good. I wish we would have done it way sooner.
Yeah, it's education is super important. I think that, if more people were educating the community, the council members, government on what this like technology is, more people would be less like adverse to it, and there's a lot of FUD. I mean, there was a lot of FUD. You heard all the FUD, I'm sure, around Greenwich generation up in New York, boiling Seneca Lake and killing
Mhm,
all the fish and stuff. And it's like it's completely false. And I don't know where these narratives like stem from and how they kind of proliferate through society, but just walking through a Bitcoin mining operation and explaining like how it actually works, you'll just destroy most of this FUD and
mhm.
get rid of these problems that you're having. And speaking of problems, you guys are running about 20 megawatts, a little bit over. I think I read somewhere you got 8,000 machines up and running right now. So at like 3,500 watts a piece, you're looking at like 28,000 kilowatts or something like a lot of power, a lot of fucking power. Um,
Yeah,
what are some of the biggest hurdles you guys have had to overcome as new Bitcoin miners?
damn. It's a loaded question. I feel like it's every day. But so obviously our first one was ventilation, like knowing that you can't plug in 10 miners into a closed off room with one air vent in the ceiling. Um, and then that led us to immersion. And immersion comes with a lot of its own challenges with working with dielectric fluid, pumps leaking, pipes bursting, stuff like that. Different challenges there. A lot of electrical infrastructure challenges, like overloading transformers. We've never actually had a transformer blow up,
Well, that's good.
thank goodness. But we've had blown fuses, we've had transformers overheat and have to be swapped out, different things like that. A lot of breakers gone bad. It's we didn't understand the message around derating. So like a Bitcoin miner comes in, it's got some pretty heavy wattage fans on it. So like when it gets hotter, there's chip level efficiency loss, but there's also just fan efficiency loss. So like once it gets hotter outside, like we can see 90 plus degree days in Minnesota.
Hmm.
So then you have a bump of 100 watts per machine. You times that by 8,000, you're looking at what would that be? 800,000 watts of power increase on your electrical infrastructure. So just kind of understanding how you need to have a derated base load for all your electrical equipment so you're not blowing stuff up. Um, I would say snow can be a challenge. We worked with one of the guys at Bit Farms who I've talked to and became friends with, and he showed us this blue filter material that has helped keep out snow in our container farms. I don't know if you saw our container site,
Mm-mm.
but we have just ant box containers outside is the majority of our farm, so it's just sucking in air, and if you don't have filtration on the back of that, it just sucks in all the light, fluffy snow into it. But so we kind of figured that out. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I could think of a lot more, but
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to kind of paint this picture that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like
yeah.
Bitcoin mining, I gotta tell you, Bitcoin mining is probably one of the hardest industries to get into. And the people who get into Bitcoin mining are dedicated, like they persevere through some of the harshest environments, and not just like physical environments, like mental, like
Mhm.
hurdles as well. And then you've also got this caveat of, by the way, your revenue is going to get cut in half every 4 years. So you better, at the very least, you better be 100% more efficient than you were 4 years ago. So what are you guys doing to like combat that? Knowing that in 4 years you're going to have another revenue drop.
Yeah, I think we're always working on upgrading our fleet. We're working on bringing in T21s is a big thing. Even migrating to more some S21s as well. Kind of just it's a gradual process for us. We're not a public miner, right? We're a horse. We're not an elephant. We're
Yeah.
not able to. I loved Bob Burnett's
Some
analogy on
would
that.
some would say that's a good thing, by the way.
Yes, yes, I agree. I mean, Bitcoin, like the ethos of Bitcoin is decentralization,
Yep.
and like having these smaller miners, like Bob talked about, is so important for not having a compact, attackable mining. Um, but yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but it
Yeah,
was,
we were just kind of talking about just this, like how you guys look you're looking towards the future and knowing that in 4 years your revenue is going to get cut in half. How are you going to plan on staying profitable? How are you trying to keep up with that decrease in revenues?
yeah, so we're working on upgrading our fleet, like I said, but also we are looking at we're kind of in a special situation here in Brainerd, Minnesota. We actually have two high-powered fiber optics interconnects in our area, which is kind of more rare for having the amount of excess power generation that we have. So we're also looking at partnering with AI HPC companies to also bring in not necessarily a hedge against Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Like obviously we're working on upgrading our fleet all the time gradually to make sure we're set for that next halving, but kind of just another stream of income, I would say, of just getting in something like the AI revolution is going to be crazy as well. I believe Bitcoin's going to boom, but I also believe AI is the future, and it's going to be something that more and more compute needs to turn on for.
Absolutely. I would say that AI is very important, and we need to build out that infrastructure as well. But I'm curious, kind of touching back to what we were talking about with demand response. AI and HPC can't shut down in the way that Bitcoin miners can. So what are you doing to assess those risks?
Yeah, so right now we don't actually have to turn on. That is something we have to get into more contact with our utility on. But right now, we're just looking at a smaller 900 kilowatt to 1 megawatt facility as a tester unit to
Okay.
just see how it goes. But with this 25 megawatt capacity that we have, there's still that additional 25 to 50 on our substation that if this other group was turned on for, that then just increases the we have that for AI, we can shut off our Bitcoin mining operation to keep that on rather than having to shut everything off. I mean that's something that we gotta play around with or see, but it's it's a load that if we have a learning language model, I think it can have some downtime, but
Hmm.
pretty sure it's gonna be like a 98% uptime modular facility. So that is a question that's been on my mind for sure.
Yeah, it's something that I've been thinking about too, is just, all of these new HPC and AI centers that are going to be coming online in the next 5 years. I mean, that is power that actually has to be built out.
Yep.
Otherwise, Bitcoin miners are going to shut off. And if Bitcoin miners are shutting off, then it's kind of destroying that decentralized nature of Bitcoin, reducing the security of Bitcoin. So that's something that I'm always thinking about. And I also think that it's good to think about these things, and make sure that we're not making any mistakes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think as data center infrastructure comes online for AI and HPC, I think it just makes even more of a need for a Bitcoin miner to be in a position nearest to that, of just in the aspect of, like you said, like these data centers can't just turn off whenever the grid needs it. So
Hmm.
it's like we need to get to that level of electrical infrastructure where we can support both and have that higher base load that then Bitcoin miners can turn off for. And I think this is a huge discrepancy between for how some utilities kind of look at Bitcoin miners and data center AI. They kind of group it together.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's very different in regards to curtailment and electrical infrastructure efficiency, I would say.
Yeah. Are you seeing, like, in your own town especially, but just kind of around, a more national scale, are you seeing this infrastructure build out, like with Bitcoin and HPC coming into the market? Like, are we seeing energy providers decide to start building bigger and better facilities, or are we not seeing that? Do you know?
I mean, with the few, I mean, obviously there's some Minnesota power producers that I've talked to, and a lot of it is seen as a pretty scary topic. So for the mid-continental interconnect system, the MISO grid,
Hmm.
um, one of the vice presidents I heard say that it's kind of a scary outlook with our current infrastructure. I mean, with all this renewable as using as your base load and all these coal plants getting shut off, it's kind of, and AI turning on,
Hmm.
and I don't know. I don't know what the next 5 years are gonna look like in regards to that. I hope we get to a speed of small modular nuclear reactors,
That's
but
where I was going with it.
who knows? We'll
Yeah,
see.
I think that I really think that the Trump administration is making this a positive environment, and when it comes to, you know, power generation, we could see these modular reactors, start popping up all over the nation, just because it really makes sense. I mean, when you look at the waste from a modular reactor versus like the hydrocarbons that are emitted, nuclear
Mhm.
reactors don't emit hydrocarbons, whereas coal emits a ton of hydrocarbons. And even diesel plants, like they produce a lot of hydrocarbons and a lot of waste.
Mhm.
So it's definitely something to keep your eye on and keep paying attention to. But I think that if we're going to start transitioning more into HPC and AI, like, we've got to build out much better grids. And it's going to be a wild 5 to 10 years. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact projection, but it's something like it's like a few billion-dollar industry now, and it's growing to over 500 billion by in the next 5 years, something like that. This is crazy numbers, but
Bitcoin mining or HPC.
yeah, AI,
Yeah,
HPC,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, we'll see.
insane.
And I hope Bitcoin continues to grow alongside that. I really hope there's a shift in education and knowing that this same person that got in touch with this MISO vice president talked about, just gave this overgeneralized, like, what if I had a load that could come on and turn off instantaneously no matter what? Like if you or had a huge curtailable load that kept a solid peak.
Hmm.
And she was like, wow, that would be amazing. Like that would be a huge help. But it's like, it's just the point where people actually are like, oh, that's what Bitcoin mining does. It's like we don't need all these crazy batteries to solve this issue when we have a base load way above everything else. And it's like we can't we can't pay the same as AI HPC companies
Yeah.
because we don't make earnings per terahash. Everyone's like, "Oh, Bitcoin's 100,000. You guys must be rich." It's like earnings gain 2 cents per
Yeah.
terahash. It's like as Bitcoin goes up, so does difficulty, and we're still way less than we were pre-halving. So,
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because this is something that okay, look, I am not an industrial miner. I will never be an industrial miner. And the reason is because I see how difficult it is to
mhm,
be an industrial miner. However, I see this shift coming, and I don't know if you see this too, if you guys are thinking about it, but this heat as a product, not as a problem.
mhm,
You know, you've got these sites up in Norway that are being built out right now, immersion sites where they're sending that heat to district heating. They're reducing people's heating bills, keeping people alive, keeping them happy and healthy with the heat, and mining Bitcoin. So, yes, you're
mhm,
getting a little bit of Bitcoin and it's being reduced every 4 years. Yeah, you got that. But you're making the heat into a product, which is bolstering your business. And
yeah,
I've seen lots of agricultural businesses that are, growing crops, that are helping to raise cattle and other things like that in the warmth of this heat. So you're up in Minnesota? It's cold up there half the year. It's not warm all the time. So are you
yeah.
thinking about this? Are you seeing things like this happening?
Yeah, we're definitely thinking about it. My Our founder, Jared, my boss, talked about heating his pool with a few miners, different stuff like that. I don't think we're to the point where we can justify a larger scale
Uh-huh.
operation with where we're at. I think it's always in the back of our head though, of like how can we transform it's all electricity, only heat as the exhaust. It's how can we transform all this electricity into heat that we use? Like if we put an apartment complex right next to a megawatt facility and did all the hot water for the entire year, I don't know. It's something I'm an engineer, so I always like
Yeah.
motors are turning in here, but
My
I don't know.
initial thought is is weed, man, like
Yeah,
marijuana.
yep.
Like like I have seen so many Bitcoin mining farms, because okay, you need power to run your Bitcoin
Yep,
miners, and you need
yep,
power to run your grow lights. You know what I mean?
mhm,
You've got a mass amount of power coming in. You have plenty of heat, which is a comfortable environment to grow marijuana in and even dry it. I'm just
yep,
saying, like y'all want an easy way. I mean, it ain't easy. Nothing's easy in this world, but without having to throw apartment complexes above, like you could just throw
mhm,
like, 100, 100 plants in there and
yep,
start growing weed for the nearest dispensary or something. I don't
grow
know.
facility. Yeah, that's intriguing. I like that idea. We've definitely brought that one up before too, because it's illegal now in Minnesota, but Um, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be cool, like you said, to see how that aspect plays out too. I've heard of the Swedish and Norwegian greenhouses and stuff like that. And I talked to one of the guys that was a CTO at one of those companies at one of the mining conferences, and I was so intrigued by it because it was before I ever found out about any like using heat. And he was just like, "Yeah, I don't really care how much hash rate. I just care how much heat it
Yeah.
dispels. Like, well, give me more heat." And I'm like, "Don't you want less heat? Like, don't you want your miners running more efficiently?" And then it was just like, wow, it's an interesting perspective when you're focused on heat over hash rate. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's
Yeah,
cool.
and that's how I come at it, man. As like I just want to heat my house. I
Yeah.
found a really cool way to do it. And it's much more efficient. It gets too hot in my house, man. Like it gets to a point where it is like 78 degrees, and my wife is like, "Turn that damn thing off." And I'm like, all right, like fine, whatever. It's
Oh, now, right?
what's
Because you
that?
got she can't hear it though, right? That's not the
No, no,
problem.
it's
No,
it,
no
it
noise.
there's barely any noise. Like
Yeah.
it's actually quieter than the furnace used to be. So, it's very, very nice in that aspect. It's just too much heat sometimes.
You have custom firmware on it to where you
Uh
can
No, not custom firmware. I'm running Epic firmware, but I
Oh, okay.
have I
Yeah.
have a really cool device from Antoine 256 Heat that allows me to shut the PDU off with Wi-Fi. So
Oh,
like I could turn my furnace on right now.
that's so cool. That's
Yeah,
so
it's
cool.
it's pretty dope. So,
I
um,
still get to do that.
dude, it was a lot. It was
Yeah.
a lot. I think that it's gonna take me like 6 or 7 heating seasons with this generation of miner to pay back all of it, which I don't care about paying it back. I'm just crazy and wanted to do it. Like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could build it.
Well, and like look at the story and like what you've learned along the way of that. Like some of
100%.
that knowledge and that story is kind of invaluable, you
Yeah,
know?
I agree. I completely agree. So we're kind of running up on time today. It's kind of be a little bit of a shorter episode. I kind of want to leave the audience with some advice. If they're looking to build a Bitcoin mining farm or get into Bitcoin mining in some way, shape, or form, what's some advice that you could leave our audience based on your experience?
Yeah, I would just say get started. I mean, if you're really serious about it, you got to know the challenges going in, which I hope some of them you would have learned while listening to this, but you got to just get after it. You're procrastinating it won't get you anywhere. You got to just take that first step like Bitcoin mining world always says. It's like you just got to start,
Mm-hmm.
and you just gotta work your way from there, kind of get a little bit of the ins and outs, talk to people, like reach out to me, reach out to Just for Crypto. We'll answer any questions you may have. We'll give you a tour of the facility if you're ever in central Minnesota and kind of show you some of the ins and outs. But yeah, I'd just say get your foot in the door,
Yeah,
dip
get
your
off
toes
zero.
in. Yep,
That's great
exactly.
advice. My next question, I ask everybody this question. So if you've watched any of my past episodes, um, Owen, what does Bitcoin mining mean to, or what does Bitcoin mean to you?
Just everything to me, man. I truly don't know. Like with what have learned about money this point in my life, I'm 23 years old. I would have had zero hope for my children's future, my grandkids' future, for what the path this country and this world is headed towards. And Bitcoin just brings in that hope back into my life. It brings a sense of purpose, something to strive for, something to educate about, something to build, and
Hmm.
mining is kind of somewhat at the center of that and just building it and learning and growing. It's been a fun journey and it's meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Bitcoin brings hope.
Yeah, I try to stress this to anybody who has a doomer outlook on the world, super black pilled. It's like the reason why you're feeling this way is because without understanding it, without even realizing it, your life is like revolves around money, how you make money, how you earn money, how you spend money, and how you save money. Like it
Mhm.
revolves around this, and you may not think about it all the time, but like it plays a pivotal role in who we become as human beings and how we exert our power. And when that money is corrupt, when it's, just built on lies and deceit, it's really hard to find purpose and drive and passion in this world. And I mean, I say it all the time on this podcast. It's like when I was your age, when I was 23 years old, I bought a house and I was so depressed because I'm working in a career. I'm working 45, 50 hours a week. I could work
Mhm.
60 if I want to, but then I don't have any time to like spend with my family, and I'm not getting anywhere. And I'm living in this tiny little house that like I can barely afford at this point. It's like, how am I supposed to live a better life if I can't hardly afford this life? And it got really dark, man. It got
Yeah.
really dark there for a minute. But then I found Bitcoin and I realized, holy shit, I can actually save my value, my time, my energy, and I can project it forward. So this idea of being able to retire and do something that I love is actually possible. And so it lit a fire under me. It gave me hope. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, I'm living on Bitcoin. I'm not
Yeah.
on a full Bitcoin standard yet, but I'm living on the Bitcoin high going like,
Mhm.
it's going to be okay. It's going to
Yep,
be fine.
exactly. Such a
So,
good way to put it.
Owen,
Mhm.
where can the audience get in touch with you? I want to share anything in the show notes.
Oh, gosh. I'm on Twitter. I think it's Owen.Davis23, I want to say, or Owen Davis 023, one of the two. Justforcrypto.com. That's where you'll find our company, Just for Crypto on Twitter, on X as well. Yeah, hit us up. We're always looking to educate or get to know new contacts throughout the world and grow together. That's one thing we've always been really good at is we just don't we're not the shadowy Bitcoin miner. We like to learn from people. We like to get to know people and progress together.
Yeah, that's how we grow, man. Like
Mhm.
community is how we grow. So
Yes.
awesome. Well, I'll put those in the show notes. Anybody who wants to reach out to Owen, just find him there. And then yeah, so this was the Build a Mind podcast. This was Owen's first appearance on a podcast, so it was an honor
Yep.
to have you here, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
Beautiful.
It's been great.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, share it out, and subscribe for more just like it. We will see you on the next podcast.
See you, everybody. Thank you.
Peace out, guys.
Please note, the Build a Mind podcast provides information for general educational purposes only. This information should not be construed as legal, financial, or investment advice. We do not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information presented, and we encourage you to consult with a professional advisor, legal advisor, and/or financial advisor before making any financial decisions. The Build a Mind podcast and its affiliates are not responsible for any losses incurred as a result of using the information provided.